A poor woman put flowers on a grave each Sunday until the CEO came up and said, "That's my wife's grave, too." The rain fell gently that Sunday afternoon, a hush from above, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Anna Reed stood before the rusty gates of Oak Haven Cemetery, a small bunch of wild flowers held in her arms. Her blonde hair, curled and falling just below her shoulders, stuck to her cheeks, misty from the fog. She tied her scarf and went in. For the past 4 months, each Sunday, unfailingly, she had walked this road alone, silent and hollow. The name on the slab beckoned to her like a thread she could never shake off. Eliza Chase. She followed the winding gravel road over worn headstones and long grass, her boots crunching softly on the ground. She knew the route now, her feet going of their own accord. She had stumbled upon the name in a faded newspaper article, yellowed with age, while rummaging through archives for an assignment at school. It was an account of a tragic accident. Eliza Chase, 29 years old, dead in a car crash. A photograph had been included with the article. Anna had gazed at it for hours. The similarity was striking. Same face, same eyes, same lips, a reflection with altered recollections. And then a name came from far within her, from some buried recess of a long, remembered childhood, a name that had been spoken in the frigid corridors of the orphanage where she had spent her early years. Eliza, my sister. Now Anna knelt alongside the headstone, swishing rain and leaves aside from the inscribed letters. Her fingers shook as she placed the bouquet. Blue bells, daisies, baby's breath into the copper vase cradled at its base. She breathed almost inaudibly. "Hello, Eliza. Sorry I'm late. I hope these are still yours." The wind shifted. The trees above whispered softly, as if eavesdropping. From her coat pocket, Anna produced a small, worn photograph, creased and faded. 2 toddler girls sat together side by side, alike in chubby faces and oversized sweaters. On the back wound in old ink, Anna and Eliza, 2 years old. She had carried the photograph her whole life. No one had ever picked up Eliza at the orphanage. No one had mentioned what had occurred. But now, after all these years, Anna had discovered her. As she reached forward to place the photo on top of the headstone, a voice came abruptly out of nowhere. "That's my wife's grave, too." Anna jumped, turning sharply around. A lanky man was a few feet away, clad in a black coat, eyes piercing and inscrutable. Standing next to him was a small girl in a pink frock, clutching a tiny star's umbrella. The child gazed at Anna, not blinking. The voice of the man returned, low and controlled. "Who are you?" Anna stood up, wiping dirt and rain from her hands. "My name is Anna. Anna Reed." He moved forward a step, his eyes constricting. "Why are you putting flowers here? Did you know Eliza?" She swallowed with difficulty, her heart racing. "I think she was my sister, my twin." A long silence followed. The man's face changed, his face closing up. He looked at her face again, this time more cautiously, as if verifying what his intuition had already yelled. "No," he said ice cold. "That's impossible." Anna didn't blink. Her tone remained soft, calm. "I spent my childhood in foster homes. I never heard her last name until recently. I've looked for her for years." "You're expecting me to trust that?" he inquired, his voice soft but firm. Anna dug into her satchel and produced a weathered plastic folder. "These are the records of an orphanage, photographs, a letter from a social worker. It's all I have." He didn't reach for them. Not yet. He just stared at her. The small girl standing next to him took a tiny step forward, eyes still fixed on Anna. Her hold on the umbrella handle tightened. "Daddy," she whispered, clinging to his coat. "She resembles Mommy." The man looked down at his daughter, then back at Anna. Something flashed behind his guarded face. Doubt, confusion, fear. "I don't know what game you're playing," he said at last, to himself rather than to her. "But if this is some sort of trick..." "It's not," Anna said, her voice close to the rain. "I'm not here to harm anyone. I merely wanted to say hello and farewell." He did not respond. The cemetery was quiet once more, the sort that follows the truth having come against the pain. The little girl, still observing, moved closer to Anna. Her umbrella leaned slightly as she extended her fingers toward the flowers. the small fingers tenderly passing over a bluebell's petal. Anna cased her, eyes gentle. The girl's eyes, so wide and so familiar, met hers, and in that one quiet moment, all else receded. The kitchen was still except for the tick of a clock and the low whine of the refrigerator. Outside, the sun of the afternoon spilled across the window, spreading soft golden light along the counter. Anna sat at the little table, shaking as she opened the envelope. Daniel stood before her, arms crossed, face still impassive, as if preparing himself for something he had not yet acknowledged that he was afraid of. Anna read the letter once, then again, her breath snagged in her chest. She covered her mouth, the paper slipping from her fingers to the table. "It's true," she whispered, her voice cracking. "She was my sister, my twin." Daniel looked down, jaw tightening. Anna let out a sound, half sob, half breath. Tears rolled down her cheeks, unashamed and quiet. "If I had found her sooner," she said, choking on the words, "maybe she'd still be here." Daniel didn't answer right aside. He glared at the letter for a moment, then drew it up slowly. His hand was clenched around the paper, but his voice was little more than a whisper. "She was always searching for something she couldn't define," he whispered. "She'd sit there sometimes, staring into space, like she waited for someone. Perhaps it was you." Anna dried her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. The silence between them was no longer frigid. It was shared, waited out in grief, but tempered by compassion. Ava sat still at the corner of the room, crayon in her hand, coloring on a piece of paper with quiet concentration. Her pink frock was dotted with small drops of paint from previous that morning, and her curls bobbed softly as she leaned forward to complete the final corner of her sketch. Anna looked over at her. "She's lovely," she said quietly. "She looks so like Eliza." Daniel nodded, his eyes softening at last. "She's all I have left of her." Ava stepped down from the chair, holding her, drawing tightly in both hands. She walked toward Anna and held it out. "I drew a rainbow," she said. "That's me and Daddy and Mommy." Anna took the paper gently, smiling through the ache in her chest. "It's lovely," she whispered. Ava tilted her head, studying Anna with those same deep, thoughtful eyes. She stepped closer, close enough that Anna could see the fine freckles on her nose, the slight curve of her mouth that mirrored Eliza's perfectly. For a long moment, Ava just stared at her. Then, in a voice so quiet it could have been a breeze, she asked, "Mommy." Anna froze. Daniel's head snapped up, his mouth parted as if to speak, but no words came. Ava blinked as though just realizing what she'd said, but not retracting it. She only stretched out, placing her hand on top of Anna's. Anna could not speak. Her heart ached in her chest. The child's skin was warm, solid, a fragment of Eliza extending across the emptiness. Through time, through grief, Daniel watched, breathing shallow, not knowing what this moment would be, what it would lead to. No one moved, no one was brave enough to. The air in the room froze, and in an instant, everything was different. The rain had ceased. The wind was silent, as if guarding something sacred. Daniel stood at the attic door with a dusty wooden box clutched in his hand. It had been shut for years, hidden behind old maps and childhood memorabilia. He had nearly forgotten it even existed until that morning, when it did not come to him with a warning. He brought it downstairs and set it on the coffee table. Anna paused in the reading of their lives on the sofa, her eyes red from late reading and recollection. "What's that?" she whispered. Daniel did not reply immediately. He bent down and lifted the lid. Within, under a pile of folded letters and yellowed photographs, was a small leather book. On its cover lay something frail, two identical silver pendants on a necklace. One had lost its clasp, the other, a small engraved on the reverse. Daniel picked them out and held one out to Anna. "I believe this belonged to you." Anna gazed at the necklace in his hand. Her fingers were shaking as she extended her hand and touched it. The shape, the curve, it all seemed familiar in a manner that shattered her heart. Daniel opened the journal book. The first page was stained by time and tears, but the writing remained legible, fine, and full of yearning. "Dear Anna, I hope you're in a warm place. I hope someday you'll find me. Sometimes I have dreams about you. We are in a meadow with blue flowers. You're smiling. You smile always in my sleep. Love, Eliza." Anna hugged the journal to her, her throat catching. She recalled me, she breathed. Even after all those years, Daniel sat next to her, voice subdued. She never spoke much of her childhood, but sometimes she'd hummed this lullaby. She claimed she didn't know where it was from, just that it put her at ease. Anna smiled weakly. "We used to sing together at the orphanage. I recall that we referred to it as our secret song." There was silence. Daniel turned a couple more pages, his eyes reading words penned in light ink. Eliza had written about her aspirations, her fears, her profound yearning to reunite with Anna, and about something else, something bright and optimistic. She wanted to have a school, Daniel said out loud, somewhere for kids who didn't have homes. She wrote about it in nearly every entry. Hannah nodded, wiping a tear away. She spoke of being the type of teacher to offer children more than classes. She wanted to offer them family. Daniel breathed out. "I thought once that there was only a melancholy in her that nothing could dispel. I tried, but I never knew where it came from." He gazed at Anna then, his face gentle. "Now I do." On the far side of the room, Ava sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring quietly with crayons. She had been abnormally quiet, listening without much talk. She looked up now, eyes broad, and held out a drawing she had made. It was two women standing side by side under a tree, one with long blonde hair and the other wearing a crown of blue flowers. A little girl stood between them, with each of their hands in hers. Anna took the drawing and smiled. "Who's this?" she asked softly. Ava paused, then she crawled forward, settling on her bottom just inches from Anna, head against Anna's arm. "If you're Mommy's sister," she said quietly, "does that mean you're my half-mommy?" Anna blinked back, a sudden wave of feeling. She put an arm around the little girl and pulled her close. "I don't know what it makes me," she whispered, "but I do know I care about you with my whole heart." Daniel observed them from where he sat the room. His daughter cuddled up against the sister of the woman he loved, and felt something move in his chest. Something deep buried, something starting again. The sun poured softly over the old community center, coating the wooden floors in gold. The space was tiny and ramshackle, but the minute Anna walked in, she could see it Eliza's dream coming to life. "This is it?" she asked, scanning around. Daniel stood next to her, arms crossed loosely, his eyes surveying the bare walls. "It requires work. Paint furniture, possibly a new roof. But yes, this was where she had wanted it to be." Anna breathed deeply. "Then let's do it." They started the very next day. At first, everything seemed uncertain. Anna and Daniel moved around each other guardedly, like dancers, not knowing the next step. When their hands touched when moving furniture, both dragged out. When they did talk, it was all logistics, supplies, enrollment, permits. Nobody mentioned the journal or the necklace, or that moment standing in the kitchen when Ava had called Anna Mommy. Slightly the work came into rhythm. Anna painted clouds and stars upon the walls. Daniel constructed low shelves for books, small cubbies with names cut into each child. He was subdued, ever intent, always a bit detached. Yet when he sat in on Anna showing Ava how to make paper cranes or do her shoes, something in him melted. Ava sat cross-legged at the back of the room every night, swinging her legs in anticipation of them being finished. She liked to bring a photograph of her mother, Eliza, in her cap and gown, holding baby Ava on her graduation day. One afternoon, she showed the picture to Anna. "This was my first teacher." Ava smiled slightly. "Now I have another one." Anna's throat constricted. She knelt down and brushed a lock of hair out of Ava's face. "She would be proud of you," Anna whispered. "Off both of you." Ava smiled, then took off to make chalk rainbows on the sidewalk. The classroom came to life as the weeks went by. Children from neighborhood shelters and foster homes wandered in, some subdued, some weeping with laughter. The smell of crayons and glue permeated the air. Laughter rang off the painted walls. And amidst all of it, Daniel and Anna began to fall into rhythm, not only as co-workers, but as something more. One night, Anna worked late to sort books. Daniel came back from a supply trip and saw her on the floor with piles of picture books and art kits around her. She smiled up at him. "You have a lot of faith in duct tape," she joked, holding up a taped-together chair. He grinned, and for once it hit his eyes. "You'd be surprised what you can repair with duct tape and hope." They sat in a moment of silence, not uncomfortable, just team, still settled, like the space between heartbeats. That night, while cleaning Ava's backpack, Daniel came upon a crumpled piece of paper hidden in a side pocket. Interested, he opened it. It was a sketch. 3 people stood under a rainbow: a blonde-haired woman, a tall man, and a pink-dressed little girl, all 3 of them smiling over them. In bright block print, Ava had written, "This is my new happy." Daniel stood in the kitchen holding the paper motionless for a very long time. His daughter, his dead wife's sister, and something within him that against all probability had begun to hope again. He glanced out at the window, where Anna read by the porch light to Ava. Her voice was soft, her smile gentle, and for the first time in a very long time, Daniel did not feel isolated. The house was still, wrapped in the sort of quiet that only falls late at night. The rest of the world had retired to bed, but Daniel sat alone in the living room, his back bent slightly over the grand piano, hidden away in the corner. His fingers floated above the keys, hesitating, then struck down softly. A plain melody floated into the room, soft, incomplete, like a memory somehow attempting to find its way home. It was a piece he had begun a long time ago, one for Eliza. But when she died, the music had fallen still, the notes too painful to complete. Tonight, for some reason that he could not fathom, the melody had come back. Down the hall, behind him, Anna stood in darkness. She had been walking towards the kitchen for tea when she had heard the music halt her. She remained still silent. She listened. There was sorrow in the notes, yes, and warmth, a sort of pain that was no longer angry, but tired, healing, seeking. Anna hugged herself, not knowing whether she should move forward or remain invisible. She did the latter, and when the last note faded, she quietly turned her back. 2 nights later, another sort of silence filled the house. Ava had awakened with a fever. She whimpered softly in her bedside, face flushed and body hot to the touch. Daniel brought her into the living room and walked back and forth, concern furrowing his brow. Anna arrived without being summoned. She knelt down next to Ava on the couch, applying a damp cloth to her forehead. "I can stay," she stated, her voice steady. "You appear drained." Daniel paused. Then, with a mute nod, he sat next to them. Hours slipped by in gentle murmurings and soft hands. Anna sang a lullaby so softly it dissolved into the air. Daniel observed her cradle Ava's hand, her thumb moving small circles in the child's palm. At around 300 a.m., Emma finally fell asleep, wrapped under a blanket with her head on Anna's lap. Daniel sat opposite them, elbows on knees, silently observing. "She has not allowed anyone to comfort her like that since Eliza," he muttered softly. Anna glanced down at the sleeping child. "She's so courageous," she whispered. A second went by, the kind of moment where hearts communicate with glances, not words. Daniel took a deep breath, and then released it as if releasing something. "You're not replacing Eliza," he said, "but you make me think that love can come back." Anna gazed at him, then actually glanced and saw the reality of it in his eyes. He stepped closer and placed his hand on the blanket that was lying across the armrest. In silence, together, they leaned forward to drape Ava correctly. As they drew the fabric slowly over her shoulders, their hands touched lightly at first, then stopped. The contact lasted longer than it should have, not through uncertainty, but through something else: yearning, terror, hope. They both gazed at their hands, and then at one another, faces mere inches away, breaths shallow. They stood too close for comfort and too far for comfort. Anna was the first to step back, just a step, eyes dropping. Daniel followed, stepping back into the stillness again. But something was different. In the stillness of that evening, the piano stood silent, the fever had broken, and 2 individuals who believed their hearts where Frozen had experienced them twitch a little, but enough. The rumor began with a whisper, one remark under an internet post. She resembles too much Eliza. That is not a coincidence. And then the pictures, side-by-side shots of Anna and Eliza, threads theorizing associations. Some were moved, some suspicious. Then the tale reached a local blog, which was picked up by some online tabloids. Then it went viral. The headlines were savage. Imposter or teacher. The woman in a dead woman's shadow. Widauer's new lover says she is his dead wife's twin. Too good to be true. Anna attempted to brush it off at first, but it wasn't easy when reporters began calling the school. Parents were asking questions. One morning, she walked down to the classroom and overheard two moms huddled in the corridor, exchanging glances in her direction. Later the same day, a woman appeared at the school gates. Hard eyes, designer shoes, assurance that was almost cruelty. Her name was Marissa Hale. She had been friends with Eliza at college, briefly referred to in the diary as the one who always expected the world to owe her. I knew Eliza better than anyone. Marissa spat, her tone smooth and venomous. She never told us about a sister ever. You expect us to believe she just forgot that she had a twin. Anna stood motionless by the classroom door, hands tightly fisted. We were parted when we were 2, she said softly. She might not have remembered everything. Marissa cocked her head, lips curling. Or maybe you're playing a very long game. A bereaved widower, a vulnerable child. It's convenient, isn't it? The words cut through Anna like ice. That night, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The light was turned low. Her reflection glared back at her, pale and worn. She touched the shape of her cheek with her fingertip, then blinked. And in that moment, she pictured it was Eliza looking back. Same eyes, same curve of the mouth. I'm not trying to be you, she whispered, voice cracking. I was just trying to love what's left of you. Her tears came fast and silent. By morning, she was gone. She left a letter on the kitchen counter, a quiet note scribbled in haste. Daniel found it before Ava did. I never meant to cause chaos. I simply needed to locate my sister. Do take care of her for us. When Ava understood Anna wasn't arriving that morning, she screamed. She dashed to her room, threw open drawers, yanked at the books where Anna sat and read. At last, she stood in the doorway holding the picture she had drawn of the 3 of them. You're not my mom, she cried, but I still wish you would be. Daniel knelt down and held her close, his chest feeling empty with guilt. That afternoon the school had a quarterly parent meeting. Daniel hadn't planned on going, but when he entered through the doors, murmurs broke out. Some parents turned their faces away. Others stared directly at him, waiting. He was at the front of the room, his heart racing. I know what's been said, he started. And I know this has been difficult to watch from the outside, but let me tell you what I see. He hesitated, scanning the room for faces. His voice steadied. I see a woman who carries the same heart as the sister she lost. A woman who gives everything she has to children who require love. A woman who spent 3 nights consecutively staying up to take care of my daughter when she was ill. Not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. His voice choked up. If Eliza were present, I think she'd also choose Anna. Because Anna doesn't merely take care of my daughter. She loves her like she is her own. There was silence for a while. Then somewhere towards the back, a parent applauded. Another followed and another. It was not thunderous, but it was sufficient. Daniel exited the meeting with a decision already seething in his heart. He was not going to lose Anna, not to fear, not to gossip, nor to the specter of someone he would always love. He was going to fight for the new family he had. The first morning of the new school year arrived with pale gray clouds sweeping across the sky. The smell of damp soil hung in the air from the rain that had fallen the night before, and dew adhered to flower gardens along the walkway of the school. Hannah stood near the edge of the yard, observing children congregate under brightly colored umbrellas. Their backpacks bounced with joy as mothers waved farewell from car windows. The school, the dream of Eliza, was alive, and full of laughter. She had not intended to go. She had gone to keep Daniel and Ava safe from further sorrow. But something in the silence that ensued, the isolation of being away from them, made her realize running was not the solution. She had gone back quietly that morning, not knowing if anyone would even care. But before she could take one step through the school gates, she heard a small, familiar voice behind her. "Miss Anna." Anna turned just in time to spot Ava running, curls bouncing, arms wide. She collided into Anna's legs, embracing her tightly. "I missed you," Ava said, her voice muffled into Anna's coat. "I missed you too, sweetheart," Anna answered, getting down on one knee, and Ava drew something from her pocket. A little silver necklace with a dainty chain, faintly tarnished, but still intact. One of the twin pendants. "This was Mommy's," Ava explained. "She stored it in her jewelry case. I want you to have it now." Anna grasped the necklace in the palm of her hand. Her eyes sparkled as she touched the shape she knew, the small engraving on the reverse side, E+A. Before she could say anything, Daniel emerged from behind the oak tree beside the sidewalk, clutching an umbrella. He had not slept much, but his smile was gentle, warm. "I was hoping you'd come today," he said. Anna stood slowly, beating hard. "I didn't know if I should." Daniel moved closer. "Then let me be sure for you." Without a word, he reached for her hand. "Come with me just for a minute." She hesitated, then nodded. He took her through past the playground, through the little grove behind the school, down a winding path that turned toward the cemetery across the way. The clouds thickened above them and a light drizzle started to fall, quiet as murmurs. As they arrived at Eliza's grave, Daniel halted. The rain lightly fell on his shoulders, his umbrella forgotten at his side. Anna was at his elbow, silent, eyes locked on the stone that carried her sister's name. Daniel laid his hand lightly on the crest of the headstone. "You said love would catch up to you," he whispered. "I believe it did." He looked toward Anna. Gently, he bent to one knee in the wet grass. "Eliza was where it all began," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "She gave me a life, a daughter, a reason to trust in family. But you, Anna, you're the reason I want to continue." Rain pounded against the leaves above them, rhythmic and steady. Anna remained silent. Her eyes glittered, but her lips did not move. Then, rather than reply, she turned. Eva had tagged silently behind, standing under a pink umbrella at the perimeter of the trees. She remained there, hoping, holding her breath. Anna approached her, knelt, and grasped her small hand. Eva gazed up, eyes wide, and without speaking, she tightened Anna's folded fingers tightly. And then she nodded. Anna glanced back over at Daniel. Raindrops and tears blended on her cheeks as she mouthed the one word that mattered. "Yes." Daniel breathed like he had been holding his breath his entire life. He rose, swept Anna and Ava into his arms, and for the first time in 3 years, allowed joy to swell freely in his chest. They stood there, the three of them, wrapped in rain and something greater than words, under the sky where Eliza had belonged, and under the promise of something new. The school garden had never seemed more alive. Golden sunlight filtered through oak trees, casting gentle shadows over rows of white chairs, full of smiling faces. Paper lanterns hung elegantly in the wind, and petals of flowers lined a small aisle to a wooden arch covered with white material and wild flowers. A year ago Anna had said yes in the rain. A year ago Daniel had played music. A year ago Ava had begun drawing pictures of 3 rather than 2. Today they were marrying. Not in a hall, not in a chapel, but here in the school's backyard where Eliza had only ever imagined. Ava, age 6 now, stood tall at the garden's front, her hand wrapped around a small pair of scissors. She was dressed in pink and white lace, and daisies were woven into her curls. A ribbon banner draped over 2 chairs behind her. Eliza's dream, a free school for all children. Anna, in a plain ivory gown, stood with her hands together, full of heart. Daniel beside her, eyes gentle. The man who had thought himself incapable of loving again. The crowd fell silent as Ava held up the scissors and sliced through the ribbon. Applause erupted and Anna's chest expanded with something so profound it almost knocked her to her knees. Later, After the sun dipped in the sky, all came together beneath the arch. No microphones, no stage, only love and silent witnesses. Daniel played at the piano produced especially for this day. His fingers glided across the keys with serene assurance, playing a melody, one known and one unknown. The music floated like sunlight, soft, soothing. He stopped before the last notes and looked to the guests. "This was a song I began for Eliza," he explained. "For a long time, I wasn't able to complete it, but now I can." He looked at Anna, then Ava. "I called it Eliza's Light." From the front row, Ava cocked her head. "Can we name it Anna's Light now?" Laughter spread through the garden. Anna laughed as well, her hand on her heart. When the vows came, Anna moved forward. Her voice shook at first, then became firm. "I came here to apologize to my sister," she said, raising her eyes to the heavens. "For the years we lost, for the birthday songs we never sang, for the questions she would have had that I never got a chance to respond to." She glanced at Ava, then at Daniel. "But I am leaving today with a man who loves me, not because I resembled someone he lost, but because I was someone he decided to choose, and a child who calls me mommy with all her heart, even when she did not have to." Her voice broke, but she went on, "And to the sister I never got to hug. This family is for you." No one said anything for a while. Then gentle applause, tears, smiles, and somewhere in the breeze, the feeling that someone invisible was smiling, too. With the evening dissolving into golden light, Daniel, Anna, and Ava walked hand in lead down the familiar trail behind the school to the cemetery. They said nothing. They didn't need to. At Eliza's grave, a new arrangement of wildflowers lay across the stone. Anna knelt, running her fingers across the petals, and breathed, "Thank you." Daniel placed a light hand on the headstone. Ava moved forward and added a small heart-shaped stone next to the flowers. "I love you, Mommy in the sky," she said. "And I love my mommy down here too." And then she ran off laughing, spinning in her pink dress beneath the golden sky, her laughter ringing out among the trees. Daniel and Anna stood side by side, hands clasped, watching her. The sun picked up their rings and enfolded them in a still warmth. They were no longer grieving, no longer waiting. They were living. And as Ava spun across the field, the world appeared to freeze for one flawless second. A flowers in a bouquet on a grave, a small girl twirling in sunlight, and a reunited family at last. And so what started out as a silent act of putting flowers on an overgrown grave became the start of a new family, a mended heart, and a love affair told not in flawlessness, but in forgiveness, bravery, and hope. Anna discovered more than a sister. Daniel discovered more than serenity. And little Ava, she discovered a whole universe of love with two mommies, one in the heavens and one taking her hand. If this story has touched your heart at least a little bit, please do consider supporting us. Subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories. Hit the hype button to enable us to bring more soulful stories to the world. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a story that just might change your day. From our hearts to yours, thank you for watching. See you in the next story.